Alrighty, I'm just going to start this video off going through all of the features that you might need, that so far at least, just to help out a little bit. And then after that, I will make a drawing that you can try to copy. I'm not going to show you exactly how to copy it, but it will be a pretty good learning task to get all of the basics down. So first off, we have our line feature up here. As you notice, I have my snap grid off at the moment. If you turn snap grid off, that's what we did in the first assignment, or what we did in the first assignment with snap grids on. So then you can do line, and you will select something like, I'm just actually going to type this in, 0, 0, and oh wow, that's down here. And I know that each of these lines are 10, and I don't have a snap between. So if I needed to draw a 60 line, I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I can see up top in the highlighted section that that will be 60 at the angle of 0. And then do this up. So I want to make, say, 4 up, 2 across. That's going to make that line, and you can tell that by the points. And if I wanted to make a triangle, I can just close it. And from here, if I want to check any of these points, so if you've been given a point, you can always check it by going to Utilities and drop down to this button called ID Point. ID Point will give you the exact coordinates of any location. So I can see here 0, yep, 60, it's 40, 40, exactly where we want it. And that is the easiest way. Always check your start points specifically. From there, there's also another tool. There's a couple other tools we're going to use. I'm going to get into that in the next part. So that's the first week kind of summed up. Circles work the same way. Click on the circle, find a snap grid. You won't know it needs to be 1. And now I have that shape. And if you need to check the diameter of the circle, you can go hit this button, Dimensions. Click on that circle, and it will leave this 20. That will stay in the drawing until you click it and you hit the delete keys. That's DEL on your keyboard. That will delete it. You can also select any object and delete it, or you can select all of them by that and hit delete there. So we're back here. So in the second part, we have to use snap grid off. Typically, this is how I like to do drawings. Also, to change your snap settings, you go in here. This will change your snap settings as well as just your grid spacing. So I want a major line every 5, and I'm actually going to put this to 5 just to make it a little bit more accurate, a little bit easier to see. So for the next part, we're going to go over what to do when snap grid's off. So for instance, if I needed to start a point at the precise coordinates of 24, 20, what you do is on your keyboard, you hit the line button and you type the characters 24, tab over to the second one, and that's going to be your y coordinate. So it's XY. It's going to bring me directly to here. From here, you'll notice I'm not snapping to anything. I do have connotations on right now. However, if you need to make a line that's 107, it is very similar to starting. You just type the number 107, hit the tab key, and you get 0. So I want to make sure that that's 0, and that will automatically set it. You can do it from anywhere. So if I need to make a 40 line with the degrees of 30, tab, 30, boom. However, because I was going down, it calculates the down direction. If you start going up, it will calculate the upward angle. This angle is always based off 0, which is going to be straight along the x-axis in a positive direction. To back out of the line, you just hit escape. And then if you want to undraw a line, Control Z. I'm not sure. I think I hit Control Z something else, but that wiped my whole drawing. So try to figure out what happened there and don't do that. So for the last assignment, let me just quickly pull it up. So last assignment, we were given specific instructions to start at 8050. So I'm just going to type that in now, 80 tab 50. It's going to snap me over to here. And it shows me that the first line is 94 at an angle of 0. So I'm just going to type that in, 94, tab 0, enter. The next one, I know it's 35 degrees between this line and this line. I also know that this is going to be 180. So I just need to minus 35 from 180. You should be able to do this in here. No, this is not like Inventor. Okay, so doing the math on the angle of this, we just covered that it was 35, and then whatever's left is the number we input from 180. So I'm going to start a line, click that endpoint, and I'm going to input the length, which we were given as 40, tab over, and I know that the angle needs to be 45 because then the interior angle will be 40. And I can check this by going up here. It will say linear by default. However, if you click that little arrow, it'll drop down to this. It'll give you a bunch of different things that you can check. We want to check angular. So this will check the angle of two lines between the two. So I'm going to click this one and this one because we care about the angle. And you can see there that it's 135. You should always be checking the angles between things. Next, it gets kind of difficult when you need to calculate what's the angle of the next line. So I know it's 150 degrees from here, and I know that this is going to be 45 degrees minus 90. So to calculate that, I'm going to put in my calculator, I'm just going to put 360. We're going to minus 45, because 45 minus 45. 45 plus 45 is 90. Minus 90. I guess it's 225. So that means from here to... Yeah, I'm not sure. Just work out the math. And if you need to check. I believe... it should be... We're just going to try 50. So I'm going to hit 35, 15, enter. And now, because I want to check that, because I have no idea if that was actually correct, I see that that's 150. So beautiful. I managed to guess it on the first try. There's ways to calculate the math. I just forget it. I always calculate it per one, and I usually have a whiteboard to figure it out. So once we get all of this done, we're going to cut to the actual... Okay. I'm going to go into here. And I'm going to try to figure out where I put that file. Okay, so it turns out my file is currently open on my other laptop that is not with me at the moment, so cannot open that file. However, I just drew a random shape here. Now we're going to put some circles in. So our first circle, I'm going to say, let's put it at 80, tab 80. It is important that you do this, especially for angles. I'm just going to put this at 5 as a radius. It is important, especially with lines, that you specify 0, because if you notice here, if I put 48 and I enter, that shows up as 0 to me. However, if we look on the line, it is off by a little bit. So if we do the same thing, except for we tab and just input 0, it will always lock exactly on, no matter how close we zoom. So I also want to put one up here. I'm just going to arbitrarily put that as 90 and 45. And then we know that off of that 45, we have a 10 degree or a 30 degree from here, which realistically means 15 degrees from here. We've got to add 90 to that. So I'm also just going to use the actual dimensions, 24. And we know it's 90 plus 15, which is 105. So that's going to draw all of our lines. So these lines are there solely so that we can map out where we're going to put the interior angle of the circle. So I'm just going to make this one, I can lock onto here. We can also actually do the math and just input the coordinates. I personally just find it quicker to just do some lines, especially with the information we were given. It's just a little easier for me personally. However, there is no wrong answer. Just make sure it locks onto there. And here we're going to make this one 10. And then we get up to the fun part here. This is what confuses a lot of people. So we know that these both need to be 19. So this is going to look a little funky because I'm actually going to change that because that was wrong. I inputted a radius of 19. However, if you notice, there's a diameter of 19, which means the actual radius is 9.5. So now we need to put this line, so we need to intersect these two lines. So considering I already have this line in the middle, there is an easy way to do it. What you can do is you hit copy here, and I want to copy this line. I want to hit enter, and I'm going to find the midpoint of this line, and now I need to draw this out. 9.5. And it's going to be 15 degrees offset. So we're going to hit 345. So that's going to mirror, that's going to lock it in perfectly here. So it intersects exactly. Now, I need to get this over here. There's actually a really easy tool you can do to get this, because this is halfway between here. It's half of the distance we need to get here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the mirror function. It asks me to select the objects I want to mirror, so I just want to copy that one, and I'm going to select the midpoint here. And now it asks me kind of where do I want it? So why is that not working? So yeah, then we can lock onto this endpoint and do that. Erase source object. We do not want to do that. And now we can clear all of our line files. And we can hit this trim button to trim off this little excess here. And now you've got your perfect 3 circles. So now the most important part is we want to double check every single part of this drawing. So I'm going to start off with ID point. So I know the point needed here, we want it to be 80-80. I'm locked on and I can see that it is 80-80. Here, if you just click the outside of the circle, you'll get, this is 30-80. That's that, and that's that. So these numbers really don't mean anything to us now. So we're mostly checking any given points. So that's 80-50, that's exactly what we're supposed to have. So now that I know all my start points are right, now I just need to make sure my geometry is right. So to check this, I'm going to hit dimensions. I'm just going to make sure, I'm just going to click all these and drag the dimensions to somewhere where I can see them. This is called annotating. So now I have all of these drawn. I also want to check the inner angles of everything. I do forget every time that you need to click this button every time you measure an angle. There is likely an easier way to do this. I am just not aware of it. Okay, we need to check our circles. So check that. We're going to first check all of our radiuses by just clicking on the outside and kind of dragging it around. And we want to check the dimensions between the two. So I can actually do that to collect the circles. You can click the middle. To lock onto the middle, you have to kind of hover over the outside. And we're going to do that and that. And last but not least, we need to check the angle here. We also really do want to be checking the angle. So actually, the only way to check the angle is to draw back all of your baselines. You can also just do the math and just use the measure tool for this, but this way is much easier. So I want to check everything in this in reference to that. So that's 0. And we have that at 35, which means we know that this is going to be 45 here. So with all of this beautiful information, we can double check everything against the original drawing, and it makes it really easy to make sure that you didn't make any mistakes, because in CAD, if you do make a mistake, even if it's a small one that compiles, your whole part's screwed. I've spent a lot of time CADing 3D parts, especially. Something as far as scale can cause huge issues. I remember one time I did a 24-hour print, so it took 24 hours to print the part I needed for a project. I used millimeters and I was supposed to use inches. That print was completely worthless and had to be thrown out. In the real world, it takes a lot longer for this type of thing to actually be printed, and it's a lot more expensive. So it's a huge mistake, and it does compile. So just double check everything as long as you've checked the first point and all your geometry. The one important thing is that these only round to 2 digits. So if you're not actually pressing tab and inputting things, it won't fully work. So any lines that are supposed to be 0, you want to hover over the intersection and just double check that the numbers are whole numbers. It doesn't work on anything with an angle, but if it is supposed to be a straight line of 0, a lot of times it's really tempting to just click enter when it's like hovering over the 0. That could be off by like a fraction of a degree. I lost a lot of marks on the last project doing that. Just make sure that it's 0, and if not, just everything that's based off that, go back, change it, make sure everything's correct. It'll save you a lot of time and get you a lot more marks. And with regards to these angles for future projects, he always wants it to be as if you drew the line. What would you have to input? So for this, I know that it needs to be 109 minus 360. That's how you get that number. It will be around like this. Because if I'm here and I put 50 and I put 109, it's going to go here. So make sure you go all the way around, and with here you'd want to just draw a straight line and then base it off that. Really confusing. I hope he doesn't ask for any more of those questions, because that was quite a hassle, and we don't want to be losing marks on anything. Besides that, you should be able to, you should at least understand everything to do this project. There's not really any important things from that project, I guess, other than copy. You can actually, like, if your whole drawing is just starting at the wrong point, calculate the difference and you can copy the whole drawing and move it in X amount. So for instance, if I needed to be 10 degrees lower here, I can just select my whole drawing, hit copy, and select the whole drawing. Enter. This is where the start point should have been, and I know that it needs to be, let's say I was off by 10, bracket, and then it's going to be 270. and that's going to copy the drawing down below, and hopefully you don't have to annotate everything, because then you have to go and delete everything. It's kind of a hassle, but it does make redraws a little easier if you're just off by a little bit. If the whole drawing is screwed up, you will just want to delete it. As promised, I will just quickly draw a design, annotate everything, and if you can make it perfectly, then you should have all the skills you need for the last project, and I'll make a new video on the current project because I haven't started it yet. Okay, this is a good practice drawing, so if you feel uncomfortable still, try this, and if you have any questions, contact me. I'll probably host an open tutoring session on Saturday night at some point. Just keep an eye on the group chat for if that's actually happening, and I will answer questions on how to make this, and also hopefully I will have started on the next assignment if you have questions relating to that. And have a good night. I'm going to sleep now.